They thought she was just a helpless, pregnant woman they could discard like trash. Liam, the arrogant millionaire, and Tiffany, his cruel mistress, walked into that courtroom convinced they had already won. They mocked her poverty, laughed at her tears, and even physically assaulted her in front of the bailiff, thinking their money made them untouchable. But they made one fatal mistake. They didn't check who was sitting on the bench. When the judge finally spoke, the color drained from the millionaire's face. He wasn't just a judge, he was the one man Liam should have feared most. Rain lashed against the windows of the sprawling Sterling manor, but inside, the storm was far quieter and infinitely more destructive. Isabella stood in the center of the marble foyer, her hands instinctively cradling her 7-month pregnant belly. Across from her stood Liam, the man she had loved since college, the man who had built a tech empire while she supported him from the shadows. But the Liam standing there today wasn't the man she married. He was colder, sharper, clad in a $3,000 suit that she had picked out, looking at her as if she were a stain on his pristine flooring. "It's over, Isabella," Liam said, his voice devoid of emotion. He checked his Rolex, as if evicting his pregnant wife was a meeting that was running overtime. "My lawyers will send over the papers. You have an hour to pack your things." Isabella felt the air leave her lungs. "Liam, what are you talking about? I'm having our son in 2 months. You can't just throw us out." "I can and I am," he sneered. "I'm bored, Bella. You're boring. You wear sweatpants. You complain about your back. And frankly, you don't fit the image of a billionaire's wife anymore." Before Isabella could respond, the sound of high heels clicking against the marble echoed through the hall. From the living room emerged Tiffany. She was everything Isabella wasn't at that moment. Sleek, manicured, and predatory. She wore a tight red dress that cost more than Isabella's first car, and a smirk that could cut glass. "Honey, is she still here?" Tiffany whined, draping herself over Liam's arm. She looked at Isabella with pure disgust. "I told you, Liam. I don't want her bad energy in the house when I move in. It's bad for my chakras." Isabella's knees nearly buckled. "Tiffany, your assistant?" "Fiancé, actually," Tiffany corrected, flashing a diamond ring that was twice the size of the one Isabella still wore. "Liam proposed this morning, right after he decided to upgrade." "You're cheating on me," Isabella whispered, tears finally spilling over. "With her?" Liam shrugged, peeling Isabella's hand off his arm when she reached for him. "Don't make a scene, Isabella. It's pathetic. Tiffany understands the lifestyle. You don't. Now get out before I have security drag you out." "But I have nowhere to go," Isabella pleaded, her voice trembling. "My family. You know I haven't spoken to them in years because of you. Because you told me they weren't good enough." It was true. When Isabella met Liam, he was ambitious, but insecure. He had slowly isolated her from her father, a stern man who hadn't approved of Liam's reckless business tactics. To please Liam, Isabella had cut ties, changing her name and living a humble life to support his startup. Now that sacrifice was the weapon he used against her. "That's a you problem," Tiffany laughed. She stepped forward, invading Isabella's personal space. "Look at you. You're pathetic, a bloated whale. Do you really think a man like Liam wants to come home to that?" Tiffany poked a manicured finger into Isabella's shoulder, hard. Isabella stumbled back, catching herself on the banister to avoid falling. "Careful," Liam said. But he wasn't talking to his wife. He was looking at Tiffany. "Don't break a nail on her." Isabella looked into Liam's eyes, searching for a shred of the man she once knew. She found nothing but ice. "I will take you to court," Isabella said, her voice shaking but gaining a sudden steeliness. "I helped you build this company. Half of this is mine. I won't let you leave me and our child on the street." Liam threw his head back and laughed. It was a cruel, hollow sound. "Court? With what money? I froze your cards an hour ago. I have the best lawyers in the city. You can't even afford a bus ticket, let alone a legal team. Go ahead, Isabella. Sue me. I'll bury you. He turned his back on her. Tiffany waved a mock goodbye, her fingers fluttering like a poisonous butterfly. Isabella grabbed her coat and walked out into the rain. She didn't have an umbrella. She didn't have a car. Liam had taken the keys. She walked down the long, winding driveway of the estate she had helped design, water mixing with the tears on her face. But as the iron gates slammed shut behind her, Isabella didn't collapse. She placed a hand on her stomach. "He thinks I have no one," she whispered to the unborn baby. "He thinks I'm weak. He forgot who raised me." She walked to a nearby gas station, shivering, and used the last few coins in her pocket to use the payphone. Her hands shook as she dialed a number she hadn't called in 5 years. It rang once, twice. "Hello?" A deep, gruff voice answered. "Dad," Isabella choked out. "It's Bela. I made a mistake. I need help." There was a long silence on the other end. Then the voice softened. Just a fraction. "Where are you?" 3 weeks later, the day of the preliminary hearing arrived. The courtroom was buzzing. Liam had made sure of that. He loved an audience. He had leaked the story to the press, spinning a narrative that Isabella was a gold-digging ex-wife trying to extort him after he found true love. Isabella sat alone at the defendant's table. She wore a simple, slightly worn maternity dress, the only one that still fit. She looked tired. The stress of the last few weeks had taken its toll, and the dark circles under her eyes were visible even from the back of the room. Her lawyer was a public defender named Mr. Henderson. He was a kind man, but he looked overworked and terrified. He was shuffling papers nervously, dropping half of them on the floor. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Sterling," Henderson whispered, sweating. "Liam's team. They're sharks. They've filed 17 motions just this morning. They're trying to get the case dismissed before we even start." On the other side of the aisle, the atmosphere was a party. Liam sat leaning back in his chair, laughing with his lead attorney, a man known as the Butcher, for how he dismantled opponents. Tiffany was there too, sitting in the front row of the gallery, right behind the defense table. She was wearing a white suit, looking like she was attending a gala rather than a divorce hearing. When Isabella looked over, Tiffany caught her eye and mouthed, "Loser." Suddenly the bailiff's voice boomed, "All rise." The door to the judge's chambers opened. Usually this case would have been assigned to a family court judge, likely Judge Reynolds, known for being easily swayed by high-powered men. But yesterday, Reynolds had suddenly fallen ill. A different figure stepped up to the bench. He was an older man, imposing, with silver hair and eyes that looked like they could see through concrete. He moved with a slow, deliberate gravity. His nameplate was placed on the bench, Honorable Judge Harold Sterling. Liam didn't even look up. He was too busy texting on his phone under the table. He didn't notice the last name. Sterling was a common enough name, and Liam was too arrogant to think anyone shared his stature. Docket number 442, Sterling vi. "Sterling," the bailiff announced. The judge sat down. He didn't open the file immediately. Instead, his gaze swept across the courtroom. It lingered for a moment on the weeping woman at the plaintiff's table, observing her worn dress and the way she held her stomach. Then his eyes shifted to the man in the expensive suit who was still looking at his phone. "Mr. Sterling," the judge's voice rumbled, deep and authoritative, "is your text message more important than this court?" Liam jumped slightly, shoving his phone into his pocket. He stood up, buttoning his jacket with a smirk. "Apologies, Your Honor. Business never sleeps. I'm sure you understand." "I understand disrespect when I see it," the judge said calmly. "Sit down." Liam blinked. He wasn't used to being spoken to like that. He sat, shooting an annoyed look at his lawyer. "Your Honor," Liam's lawyer, the Butcher, stood up smoothly. "We move for an immediate dismissal. This case is frivolous. My client, Mr. Liam Sterling, is a victim of harassment by an estranged spouse who refuses to accept the termination of their relationship. She has no claim to his assets as per the prenuptial agreement. The prenup she signed under duress, Mr. Henderson squeaked from the other table. Duress? The butcher laughed. She was a barista when he found her. He gave her a life of luxury. Now she wants a payout. Tiffany, unable to help herself, let out a loud snort of laughter from the gallery. The judge's eyes snapped to her. Is something funny, miss? Tiffany stood up, flipping her hair. It's just ridiculous, Judge. Look at her. She's dragging this out because she's jealous. Liam doesn't want her. She should just get a job and move on like the rest of us. And you are? The judge asked, his face unreadable. I'm Tiffany, Liam's fiancée. She beamed. You are not a party to this case. Sit down and be quiet, or I will have you removed, the judge ordered. Tiffany's jaw dropped. She sat down, crossing her arms and glaring daggers at Isabella. Proceed, the judge said to Liam's lawyer. Thank you. As I was saying, Isabella Sterling contributed nothing to the company. She was a housewife. She has no financial literacy, no business acumen. To suggest she deserves half is laughable. Isabella stood up slowly. That's not true, she said, her voice quiet but firm. I wrote the original business plan. I worked 2 jobs to pay for the servers when we started. I named the company. Objection, the butcher shouted. Hearsay. There is no record of her employment. Because he wouldn't put me on the payroll, Isabella cried out. He said it was for tax reasons. Lies, Liam muttered, loud enough for the mic to catch. She's delusional. Hormones, Your Honor. You know how pregnant women get. The courtroom went silent. The judge leaned forward. He took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. Mr. Sterling, did you just attribute your wife's testimony to hormones? Liam smirked, thinking he had found a male ally. Well, let's be real, Your Honor. She's emotional. She's not thinking clearly. She needs medical help, not a settlement. The judge put his glasses back on. He looked at Isabella. Mrs. Sterling, do you need a break? You look pale. I'm thirsty, Your Honor, Isabella whispered. I haven't eaten much. Bailiff, get the plaintiff some water, the judge ordered. As the bailiff moved, the court went into a brief recess while documents were sorted. Liam leaned over to his lawyer, whispering loudly. Look at this old geezer. He's soft. I'll wrap him around my finger. Tiffany leaned over the railing. Hey, fatty, she hissed at Isabella, who was sipping the water. Enjoy the water. It's the last thing you'll get for free. Isabella ignored her, staring straight ahead. Tiffany, enraged by the lack of reaction, stood up and pretended to trip. As she stumbled forward, she accidentally kicked out her leg. Her sharp stiletto heel connected hard with Isabella's shin. Isabella cried out in pain, dropping the water cup. She doubled over, clutching her leg. Oops, Tiffany giggled, covering her mouth. Clumsy me. Maybe if you didn't take up so much space, you wouldn't get in the way. The courtroom gasped. It was a blatant assault. Liam laughed. Drama queen. It was a tap. Order! The judge slammed the gavel down so hard the wood handle cracked. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The room froze. The judge stood up. He was no longer just a presiding official. He was a towering force of fury. His face was red, his knuckles white. Bailiff! The judge roared. Secure the courtroom! Your Honor, it was an accident, Liam's lawyer said quickly, sensing the shift in the air. My client's fiancée simply tripped. Silence, the judge bellowed. He pointed a shaking finger at Tiffany. You just assaulted a pregnant woman in my court. Do you think this is a game? Do you think this is a reality TV show? Tiffany shrank back, her confidence evaporating. I didn't mean to... And you? The judge turned his gaze to Liam. You laughed. You sat there and laughed while the mother of your child was kicked. Liam stood up, defiant. Now wait a minute. You can't talk to me like that. Do you know who I am? I pay more in taxes than you make in a decade. I can have your job. The judge stared at Liam for a long, agonizing moment. Then a very strange, very cold smile touched his lips. You can have my job? The judge repeated softly. Mr. Sterling, You seem to be under a significant misapprehension about who holds the power in this room." "I have the power," Liam spat. "Money is power. And she," he pointed at Isabella, "has nothing. She's a nobody. She comes from a family of losers, and she's going to die a loser." Mwah. Isabella looked up at the bench, her eyes meeting the judge's. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. The judge sat back down. He picked up the file in front of him. Isabella's file. "You mentioned her family," the judge said, his voice dropping to a conversational, almost pleasant tone. "You said she comes from a family of losers. Tell me, Mr. Sterling, did you ever meet her father?" Liam scoffed. "Her father? No. She was too embarrassed to introduce me. Probably some drunk in a trailer park. Why does it matter?" "It matters," the judge said, opening the file, "because character matters. You see, Mr. Sterling, you are right about one thing. Isabella did cut ties with her family. But she didn't do it because she was embarrassed of them. She did it because she was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Liam frowned. "From what?" "From judgment," the judge said. "Her father is a difficult man, a strict man. He has zero tolerance for liars, cheats, and bullies. If he had met you 10 years ago, he would have seen right through you." "Is there a point to this story, Your Honor?" the butcher interrupted impatiently. "We have a motion to dismiss." "The point," the judge said, looking directly at Liam, "is that you should really check the name on the bench before you insult a woman's father." Liam paused. He looked at the nameplate. "Honorable Judge Harold Sterling." He looked at Isabella. Her maiden name wasn't Sterling. It was... Wait. She had changed it when they got married. But before that, she had gone by her mother's maiden name, Davis. But Liam suddenly remembered a conversation from years ago, Isabella mentioning that her father was in law. He had assumed she meant a paralegal or a cop. "Isabella," the judge said gently, "are you all right?" Isabella wiped her eyes and stood up, wincing from the pain in her leg. "I'm okay." "Dad." The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Liam's face went white. He looked from Isabella to the judge. The resemblance in the eyes was suddenly terrifyingly clear. "Dad," Liam whispered. Tiffany looked confused. "Wait, Liam, why is she calling the judge Dad?" The judge, Judge Harold Sterling, leaned over the bench. The warmth was gone from his eyes. He looked at Liam with the cold precision of an executioner. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, "you are currently in a courtroom presiding over a divorce case involving my daughter and my unborn grandchild, and you just allowed your mistress to kick her." Liam swallowed hard. "Your Honor, I didn't know. This is a conflict of interest. You have to recuse yourself." "Oh, I intend to," Judge Sterling said, his voice deadly calm. "I cannot preside over this case. It would be unethical." Liam let out a breath of relief. "Good. Good. Then we'll reschedule. However," the judge continued, raising a finger, "before I recuse myself, I have the authority to address the contempt of court and the assault that just occurred in my presence. Those are separate matters. And for those, Mr. Sterling, I don't need to be your judge. I just need to be the witness." He pressed a button on his desk. "Bailiff, take Miss Tiffany into custody for assault and battery, and take Mr. Sterling into custody for contempt of court. I'm holding you in a holding cell for 24 hours to cool off while we find a new judge." "You can't do this!" Liam screamed as the bailiff moved in, handcuffs jingling. "I'm a millionaire." "In here," Judge Sterling said, closing the file. "You're just a defendant." As the bailiff grabbed Liam's expensive suit jacket and shoved him toward the side door, Isabella stood tall. She watched the man who had tormented her get dragged away, sputtering and terrified. She looked at her father. He gave her a small, sad smile. But the nightmare wasn't over. This was just the opening battle. Liam had resources, and a night in jail would only make him angrier. The real war was just beginning. The holding cell at the county courthouse was a far cry from the penthouse suites and VIP lounges Liam Sterling was accustomed to. It smelled of stale coffee, industrial cleaner, and the nervous sweat of a dozen men who had occupied it before him. Liam sat on the cold metal bench, his $3,000 Italian suit jacket folded meticulously on his lap to keep it from touching the grime. Across the narrow corridor, in the women's holding cell, Tiffany was pacing like a caged tiger, her heels clicking rhythmically against the concrete floor. "This is insane, Liam!" she shrieked, her voice echoing off the cinder block walls. "My father is going to hear about this. Do you know how humiliating this is? They took my phone. I can't even post a statement." Liam rubbed his temples, trying to massage away the headache that was throbbing behind his eyes. "Shut up, Tiffany. Just shut up for 5 minutes." "Don't tell me to shut up," she snapped, gripping the bars. "You said you had this handled. You said she was a nobody. You didn't tell me her father was a federal judge." "I didn't know," Liam roared, losing his composure. He stood up, pacing the small length of his cell. "She told me her father was dead to her. She went by Davis when I met her. How was I supposed to know she was one of those Sterlings?" The realization had been gnawing at Liam for the last hour. The Sterlings were an institution in the state, old money, political connections, a dynasty of law and order. Liam was a Sterling by name, but he came from nothing. He had clawed his way up from the gutter, building his tech empire on cutthroat deals and stolen code. He had always assumed his wealth made him superior. But Judge Harold Sterling? He was the kind of man who ate billionaires for breakfast. "Bailiff!" Liam shouted for the 10th time. "Where is my lawyer?" As if on cue, the heavy steel door at the end of the hallway buzzed and clanked open. Arthur the Butcher Vanderhoven walked in, looking flustered. He was carrying a briefcase that looked heavier than usual. "Get me out of here, Arthur," Liam snarled. "I'm working on it," Arthur said, wiping sweat from his forehead with a silk handkerchief. But Judge Sterling didn't just recuse himself. He slapped a 24-hour hold on the contempt charge. "It's ironclad. I've called in every favor I have, but no judge wants to overturn Harold Sterling's order within the first hour. It's professional suicide. I don't pay you for excuses." Liam kicked the metal bench, sending a clang through the room. "I pay you to win. That old man humiliated me." "He did more than that," Arthur said, his voice lowering. "He's opened a file. He's petitioning for a full audit of your personal finances as part of the divorce discovery. And since he's not the presiding judge anymore, he's acting as an interested party on behalf of his daughter." Liam's face went pale. "An audit? He can't do that. The offshore accounts—" "Exactly," Arthur hissed. "If they dig deep enough, they'll find the Cayman shell companies. They'll find the tax evasion. Liam, if Harold Sterling wants to destroy you, he doesn't need a gavel. He just needs a pen." Liam sank back onto the bench. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of genuine fear. But the fear was quickly replaced by a cold, burning rage. He had built his empire by destroying anyone who stood in his way. He wasn't going to let a pregnant ex-wife and her geriatric father take it from him. "Get me out," Liam said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Pay the bail, bribe the clerk, I don't care. Just get me out, and then get me Vance." Arthur's eyes widened. "Vance? Liam, that's dangerous. Vance is a cleaner, not a lawyer." "I know what he is," Liam said, staring at the concrete floor. "Isabella wants a war? She thinks Daddy can save her. I'm going to show her that in the real world the law doesn't matter. Only leverage matters. I'm going to burn her world down before her father can even file the first motion." It took 6 hours and $50,000 in expedited processing fees. But Liam and Tiffany were finally released just as the sun was setting. They walked out of the back exit of the courthouse to avoid the paparazzi, but a few photographers were waiting. "Liam, is it true you assaulted your pregnant wife?" "Tiffany, how does it feel to be the other woman?" They ignored the flashes. diving into the waiting black SUV. As the door slammed shut, safe within the soundproof glass and leather interior, Tiffany let out a scream of frustration. "I am suing that city," she yelled. "Look at my wrist. The handcuffs left a mark." Liam didn't answer. He poured himself a drink from the car's minibar, his hand shaking slightly. He downed the scotch in one gulp. "Driver," Liam said, "take Tiffany to the hotel." "What?" Tiffany whipped her head around. "I'm not going to a hotel. I'm coming home to the manor." "No," Liam said coldly. "The press is camped outside the manor. And frankly, your little stunt in the courtroom is the reason we're in this mess. You kicked a pregnant woman in front of a judge, Tiffany. You're a liability right now." "A liability?" Tiffany gasped. "I'm your fiancé. You're a distraction," Liam said, checking his phone. "Go to the Four Seasons. Shop, get a massage. Stay off Instagram. I have work to do." He signaled the driver to stop. As the car pulled over, his security team opened the door for Tiffany. She looked at him with shock, realizing for the first time that to Liam, people were just accessories, and accessories could be discarded when they went out of style. Once she was gone, the atmosphere in the car shifted. The air grew heavier. "Go to the warehouse," Liam ordered. The driver nodded. They drove away from the city centre, toward the industrial district where the shadows were longer and the buildings were scarred with graffiti. They pulled into a nondescript lot behind a shipping company Liam owned on paper, but never visited. A man was waiting there. He was leaning against a rusted shipping container, smoking a cigarette. He wore a leather jacket and had a scar running through his left eyebrow. This was Vance. Liam stepped out of the car, the pristine shine of his shoes contrasting sharply with the oil-stained pavement. "Rough day at the office, boss?" Vance asked, flicking the cigarette away. "I have a problem," Liam said, cutting to the chase. "A loose end that's threatening to unravel everything." "The wife?" Vance guessed. "And her father," Liam added. "Judge Harold Sterling. They're coming for the company. They're coming for the money." Vance whistled low. "A federal judge. That's high stakes, Liam. Touching a judge brings heat. Big heat." "I don't want him touched," Liam corrected. "Not physically. Not yet. I want him neutralized. I want you to dig into his past. Every ruling, every investment, every skeleton in his closet. No man is that clean. Find me something I can use to blackmail him into dropping the case." "And the girl?" Vance asked. "The wife?" Liam's expression darkened. He thought of Isabella, the woman who had once rubbed his back when he was stressed, who had cooked his meals, who was carrying his son. He felt a pang of something, guilt, but he crushed it instantly. She had humiliated him. She had chosen her side. "She's cut off," Liam said. "I want you to make sure she has nothing. No friends, no support system. Intimidate anyone who tries to help her. And there's a laptop, an old MacBook she kept from the early days of the startup. It has some proprietary data on it. I need that laptop back, by any means necessary." Vance grinned, a shark-like baring of teeth. "Consider it done, but the price just went up." "I don't care about the price," Liam said, turning back to his limousine. "Just bring me her head on a silver platter." While Liam was plotting in the shadows of the industrial district, Isabella was sitting in a room that felt like it belonged in a different century. Judge Harold Sterling's estate, Oak Haven, was located an hour outside the city, nestled in a valley surrounded by dense forest. The library where Isabella sat was lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, the air smelling of old paper and cedar wood. A fire crackled in the large stone hearth, casting a warm glow over the room. Isabella was curled up in a large armchair, a thick woolen blanket draped over her legs. Her shin was bandaged where Tiffany had kicked her, and though the physical pain was dulling, the emotional shock was still fresh. Her father entered the room carrying a tray with tea and sandwiches. He had shed his judicial robes for a soft cardigan, looking less like the terrifying figure of justice, and more like the father Isabella remembered from her childhood. before the arguments, before Liam. "You need to eat, Bella," he said gently, placing the tray on the low table. "For the baby." Isabella reached for a sandwich, her hand trembling. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry I stayed away so long. I was ashamed." Harold sat opposite her, his eyes full of regret. "No, Bella, I was too hard on you. I pushed you away because I didn't trust him. I saw his ambition, his cruelty. I tried to control you, and instead I lost you." "You were right," Isabella whispered, "about everything. He used me. He used my ideas, my work, and then he threw me away like garbage." "He didn't just use you," Harold said, his voice hardening. "I've been making calls. My clerks have been looking into Sterling Tech's filings. Bella, the timeline doesn't match up. The core algorithm, the golden goose that made the company billions, was filed 3 days after you two were married, but the development logs show it was written 6 months prior." Isabella looked down at her hands. "I wrote it." The silence in the room was absolute. Harold stared at his daughter. "You wrote the algorithm? The Omnicode?" Isabella nodded. "Liam was the face. He was the salesman. But he couldn't code his way out of a paper bag. I built the architecture in our basement, while he was out pitching to investors. He told me it was better if my name wasn't on it. He said investors wouldn't trust a husband and wife team, that it looked unprofessional. He said he would put it in a trust for us." "And did he?" Harold asked. "I don't know," Isabella admitted. "I signed so many papers. I trusted him." Harold stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked grounds. "This changes everything. This isn't just a divorce case anymore, Bella. This is intellectual property theft. It's fraud. If we can prove you wrote that code, half the company isn't enough. You own the foundation of his entire empire." "But how do I prove it?" Isabella asked, tears welling up again. "He wiped my computers. He locked me out of the servers. I have nothing." "You have your mind," Harold said, turning back to her. "And you have me. And I have resources that Liam Sterling can't even dream of." Just then, the heavy oak doors of the library opened. A woman entered, tall, severe, wearing a sharp grey suit. She carried a tablet and had a Bluetooth earpiece in her ear. This was Eleanor, Harold's chief of staff and former specialized prosecutor. "Judge," Eleanor said, her voice crisp, "we have a situation at the gate." Harold's demeanor shifted instantly back to the courtroom titan. "What kind of situation?" "A private investigator," Eleanor said. "Goes by the name of Vance. We ran his plates. He's ex-military, dishonorable discharge, known associate of several organized crime syndicates. He claims he's here to serve a subpoena, but he's accompanied by 2 men who are definitely not process servers." Isabella gasped. "Liam sent them. He's trying to scare me." "He's doing more than that," Eleanor continued, tapping her tablet. "I just got an alert from the bank. Isabella's accounts have been flagged for suspicious activity and frozen. Her health insurance was cancelled an hour ago retroactively, and someone just leaked a story to the Gazette claiming Isabella had an affair with her yoga instructor." "I don't even do yoga," Isabella cried, clutching her stomach. "He's trying to destroy me." Judge Sterling's face turned into a mask of stone. He walked over to that fireplace and picked up a heavy iron poker, weighing it in his hand, before setting it back down. "He wants a street fight," Harold said quietly. "He thinks because I wear a robe, I don't know how to fight in the mud." He looked at Eleanor. "Activate the security protocols. No one gets in or out of this estate without my direct authorization. Call the sheriff, the high sheriff, not the deputies. Tell him I have trespassers with criminal records on my property." "And the accounts?" Eleanor asked. "Cover them," Harold said. "Transfer $5 million into a new account for Isabella under her mother's maiden name. Get the best OBGYN in the state to make a house call. Tonight." He turned to Isabella, who was watching him with wide eyes. "He wants to starve you out," Harold said, kneeling beside her chair and taking her hand. "He wants to break your spirit, so you'll sign whatever settlement he throws at you. But he made a mistake, Bella. He forgot that before I was a judge, I was a prosecutor. And before that, well, let's just say I know how to handle bullies." "What do we do?" Isabella asked. "We stop playing defense," Harold said. "You said you wrote the code. Do you remember the kernel? The root access?" "Of course," Isabella said, a spark of her old confidence returning. "I built a back door, just in case he ever locked himself out. I called it the fail-safe." Harold smiled, a grim, predatory smile. "Does Liam know about it?" "No," she said. "He never bothered to learn the back end." "Good," Harold said, standing up. "Eleanor, bring me a secure laptop, an air-gapped one. Bella is going to do some typing." "What are we going to do?" Isabella asked, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "We are going to turn off the lights," Harold said. "If he wants to play in the dark, let's see how he likes it when his empire goes blind." Outside the gates of Oak Haven, the rain was pouring harder. Vance sat in his idling car, watching the massive iron gates through the windshield. He saw the security cameras rotate to focus on him. He saw the floodlights snap on, blindingly bright. "Boss, they're locking down," his driver said nervously. "This isn't a normal house. This is a fortress." Vance picked up his phone and dialed Liam. "Yeah?" Liam's impatient voice answered. "We can't get in," Vance said. "The old man has private security, serious security, and the cops are rolling up. Sheriff's department. I don't pay you to tell me what you can't do," Liam screamed on the other end. "Find a way. If you can't get to her, get to something she cares about. Burn it all down if you have to." Vance hung up. He looked at the house one last time, then put the car in reverse. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The storage unit," Vance said, a cruel grin spreading on his face. "The one where she kept all her mother's heirlooms. If we can't touch her, we'll touch her past." Back inside the library, Isabella's fingers flew across the keyboard of the secure laptop. For the first time in years, she felt powerful. She wasn't the pregnant victim anymore. She was the architect. She hit the final key. "It's done," she whispered. "What did you do?" Harold asked. "I didn't destroy the code," Isabella said, watching the screen. "I just encrypted it, until the original creator inputs the biometric key." "Which is?" Isabella placed her hand on her swollen stomach. "My heartbeat. And his." Across the city, in the gleaming glass tower of Sterling Tech, the main servers suddenly began to hum. Red lights started flashing on the dashboards. Screens went black. The entire network, billions of dollars of data, locked instantly. And on every single monitor in the building, a single message appeared in bright green text. "System lockdown. Please contact Administrator Isabella." The atmosphere inside the executive suite of Sterling Tech was usually one of hushed reverence and expensive cologne. Tonight, it smelled of panic sweat and burning circuitry. The Isabella Protocol, as the IT team had dubbed it in hushed whispers, had spread through the mainframe like wildfire. It wasn't just a lock, it was a complete systemic seizure. Every computer, every server, every smart device connected to the Sterling network displayed the same neon green text. "System lockdown. Contact Administrator Isabella." Liam stood in the center of the war room, a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. His tie was undone, his hair wild. He was screaming at his chief technology officer, a brilliant young man named Kevin, who looked like he was about to vomit. "Fix it!" Liam roared, throwing a stapler against the wall. It shattered, scattering metal staples across the plush carpet. "I pay you 300,000 a year to fix things. Override her. Hack it. Do something." "We can't, sir," Kevin stammered, typing frantically on a standalone laptop that wasn't connected to the main network. "The encryption. It's beautiful. I mean, it's terrifying. It's polymorphic. Every time we try to crack a line of code, it rewrites itself. It's tied to a biometric signature we don't have. It's a dead man's switch." "It's not a dead man," Liam spat. "It's a pregnant housewife. She doesn't know how to code like this." "Respectfully, sir," Kevin said, adjusting his glasses. Whoever wrote this is a genius. This is NSA-level architecture. If your wife wrote this, she's the best coder this company ever had. Liam froze. The words hit him harder than the plummeting stock ticker on the wall. He remembered the nights in their cramped apartment, Isabella typing away while he slept, telling him she was just fixing bugs. He had taken credit for her genius for so long he had actually started to believe the lie himself. Suddenly, the heavy double doors swung open. Tiffany stormed in, holding her platinum credit card like a weapon. "Liam!" she shrieked. "My card was declined at Saks. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is? The salesgirl cut it up, in front of people." Liam turned on her, his eyes bloodshot. "Get out, Tiffany. The company is burning down. And you're worried about shoes? I'm worried about my life," she yelled back. "You promised me millions. You promised me the penthouse. Right now, I can't even buy a latte. Fix this, or I'm walking." "You're not going anywhere," Liam said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. He walked over and grabbed her arm hard. "You're in this with me. You kicked her. You started the dominoes falling. If I go down, Tiffany, you go down with me. You'll be back to stripping in dive bars before the ink dries on my bankruptcy filing." Tiffany's eyes widened in fear. She pulled her arm away, rubbing the red mark he left behind. She retreated to the corner, silence finally descending upon her. Liam's phone buzzed. It was a video call from Vance. Liam answered it, putting it on speaker. "Tell me you have good news." On the small screen, Vance's face was illuminated by flickering orange light. He was standing in front of a metal roll-up door at a self-storage facility. The door was cut open. "Well," Vance grunted, "we couldn't get to the girl. The judge has that estate locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Private military contractors at the gate. Drones in the air. It's a no-go." "Then why are you calling me?" Liam demanded. "Because you said to hurt her," Vance said. He stepped aside. Behind him, inside the storage unit, a fire was raging. Piles of boxes were engulfed in flames. "No!" a voice screamed from the background of Liam's mind. Isabella's voice. A memory. "Those are my mum's things, Liam. The only photos I have of her. Her wedding dress. Please make sure the bill is paid." "No." Vance kicked a box labeled Mom's Albums into the center of the fire. "We found her storage unit, the one she's been paying for with that secret account. It's all here. Baby clothes, photo albums, some old furniture. It's roasting real nice." Liam watched the flames consume the memories. For a second, a flicker of hesitation crossed his face. This was evil. This wasn't business. This was desecration. But then he looked at the red screens around him. He looked at Tiffany cowering in the corner. He looked at his empire crumbling. "Good," Liam said, his voice dead. "Film it. Send it to her. Let her know that this is just the beginning. If she doesn't unlock the servers by midnight, I'm coming for her for the rest." At Oak Haven, the mood in the library was somber. Isabella sat wrapped in a blanket, staring at the iPad Harold held. The video Vance had sent was playing. The crackle of the fire was the only sound in the room. Isabella watched as the only physical remnants of her mother, the woman who had taught her to be strong, the woman who had died before she could meet her grandchild, turned to ash. Isabella didn't scream. She didn't wail. She just stared, tears streaming silently down her face, her hand gripping the armrest so hard her knuckles turned white. "He's a monster," Eleanor whispered, turning away, unable to watch. Judge Harold Sterling turned off the iPad. His face was a mask of terrifying calm. He carefully placed the device on the table. "He thinks this will break you," Harold said softly to his daughter. "He thinks pain makes you weak." Isabella took a shaky breath. She looked up. The sadness in her eyes was evaporating, replaced by a cold, hard rage that matched her father's. "He burned my mother's dress," she whispered. "He burned the photos." "Yes," Harold said. "He thinks I'll unlock the code to save whatever is left," Isabella said. "Will you?" Harold asked. Isabella stood up. She walked to the window, looking out at the dark forest. No, I'm done saving him. I'm done protecting him. He wants to burn things? Fine. Let him burn. She turned back to her father. Dad, I want to press charges, not just for the assault. For everything. The fraud, the embezzlement, the emotional abuse. I want to bury him. Harold nodded, a grim smile touching his lips. I was hoping you'd say that. Eleanor, get the district attorney on the line. The real one, not the deputy. And call the SEC. I think it's time we reported a massive insider trading scheme at Sterling Tech. And Dad, Isabella added. Yes, sweetheart? That man. Vance, she said, her voice trembling with fury. He was at the storage unit. He started the fire. I know, Harold said. He made a mistake, Isabella. He filmed his crime, and he sent it across state lines using a telecommunications device. Harold walked over to his desk and picked up an old-fashioned telephone receiver. That makes it a federal crime, the judge said, and I still have friends in the bureau who owe me favors. Within the hour, the machinery of justice began to turn. It wasn't the swift, chaotic violence of Liam's world. It was the slow, crushing weight of the law. Subpoenas were drafted. Warrants were signed by judges who had been mentored by Harold Sterling. The noose was tightening, but a cornered animal is the most dangerous kind. And Liam Sterling was about to realize he had no way out but through violence. By the next morning, Sterling Tech had flatlined. The stock price had dropped 78%, trading was halted, and the building was a ghost town. Liam sat alone in his office, the silence deafening. The door opened, and his lawyer, Arthur, walked in. Not with files, but with his coat. I'm resigning, Liam, Arthur said, tossing a letter onto the desk. I saw the video of the storage unit fire. That's felony arson. I can defend a scumbag, but I won't go to prison for one. You're broke, Liam. You're radioactive. Arthur walked out, leaving Liam with nothing but his rage. He had one card left to play: violence. He dialed Vance. We need to move now, Vance said. The feds are sniffing around. But I have a plan. The old man gets a medical delivery every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Oxygen tanks. We hijack the van, drive right through the front gate, and take the house. We put a gun to the girl's head, she unlocks the servers, and we disappear. It was a desperate, insane plan. Do it, Liam said. Pick me up. An hour later, rain battered the windshield of a stolen MedLife van as it idled at the gates of Oak Haven. Vance was driving. Liam sat in the passenger seat, clutching a cold pistol Vance had given him. He was sweating profusely. The security guard scanned the stolen ID badge. He paused, looking from the scanner to the van, then nodded. Go ahead, service entrance. The gates groaned open. Too easy, Vance muttered. Amateurs. They parked behind the mansion and kicked open the service door. The house was eerily silent. They moved through the empty kitchen and into the hallway, their footsteps creaking on the floorboards. Isabella, Liam screamed, his patience snapping. Come out and fix the servers, and nobody gets hurt. They burst into the library. The fire was dead. The room was empty. Suddenly the heavy double doors behind them slammed shut with a mechanical clack. The lights flared to blinding brightness, and a large monitor on the wall flickered to life. Judge Harold Sterling sat comfortably in a panic room, sipping tea. Isabella was beside him, looking calm and safe. Where are you? Liam screamed at the screen. 3 stories beneath you. Harold's voice boomed through the speakers. You didn't really think we let that van through the gate by accident, did you? The ID flagged as stolen instantly. We've been watching you on thermal cameras for miles. We'll wait you out, Liam sneered, trying to mask his terror. You don't have time, Harold replied. Look out the window. Liam turned. The driveway was awash in blue and red lights. Dozens of sheriff's cruisers and a SWAT armored carrier had the house surrounded. A megaphone cut through the rain. This is the FBI. Drop your weapons. You set us up, Liam whispered, the the gun clattering from his shaking hand. "I'm a judge, Liam," Harold said coldly. "I don't break the law, I enforce it. You forgot the most important rule of the courtroom. Never ask a question if you don't already know the answer. And never break into a house rigged with a containment system," Isabella added. Steel shutters slammed down over the library windows, sealing them in darkness. Gas canisters dropped from the ceiling, hissing as they filled the room with white smoke. "Tear gas," Vance coughed, dropping to his knees. As the SWAT team battered down the doors, Liam Sterling curled into a ball on the floor, weeping as his empire, his freedom, and his future dissolved into smoke. 6 months had passed since the raid on Oak Haven. Inside the federal district court, the air was cold as a tomb. The downfall of Liam Sterling had become the trial of the century, a spectacle of white-collar crime and attempted murder. Isabella sat in the front row, holding 2-month-old Gabriel Harold Sterling. He was sleeping peacefully, unaware that his father sat 20 feet away in an orange jumpsuit. Liam looked like a ghost, gaunt, sallow, and desperate. His arrogance had been replaced by a twitchy, nervous energy as he scanned the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. The prosecution's first weapon was Tiffany. Dressed modestly in grey, she wept on the stand, playing the victim to perfection. She had cut a deal for full immunity in exchange for her testimony. "He forced me," she sobbed. "Mr. Sterling said he would ruin me if I didn't help him. I was terrified." "You liar!" Liam screamed, lunging against his chains. "You begged for the money." "Order!" Judge Patterson barked, silencing him. Liam slumped back, realizing that the people he had bought with money had no loyalty once the checks bounced. Then Isabella took the stand. She didn't limp anymore. She stood tall, radiating a quiet dignity that silenced the gallery. "He came to kill us," Isabella stated clearly, "because I wouldn't unlock the server. That server contained the code I wrote, code he stole and claimed as his own. He wanted to be a god, and when I stopped feeding his ego, he tried to erase me." Her testimony was the final nail in the coffin. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. "We find the defendant, Liam Sterling, guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted. Judge Patterson peered over her glasses at the broken billionaire. "Mr. Sterling, your crimes were born of breathtaking narcissism. You assaulted a pregnant woman, ordered arson, and held a family hostage. I sentence you to 25 years in a federal penitentiary without parole. Furthermore, I order the immediate restitution of all Sterling Technologies assets to their rightful creator, Isabella Sterling." As bailiffs dragged a weeping Liam away, he screamed Isabella's name. She didn't turn around. She walked out into the sunlight, her father's arm around her, the architect. 1 year later, the cold glass tower of Sterling Tech had been transformed. It was now Phoenix Systems, filled with natural light and lush plants. Isabella sat in the CEO's office, the same room where Liam had once dismissed her. In the corner, toddler Gabriel played with blocks while his grandfather, the retired Judge Sterling, watched with a smile. "The board is ready, Isabella," her assistant said. Isabella stood up. She was no longer the scared wife in the rain. She was a mother, a daughter, and a titan of industry. She walked into the boardroom, commanded the table, and announced her first initiative, a massive scholarship fund for single mothers in tech. She looked out the window at the city skyline. The storm was over. The sun was shining. And for the first time, Isabella Sterling was truly free. And that is the story of how arrogance blinded a billionaire to the one force he couldn't buy, a father's love and a mother's strength. Liam thought his money made him untouchable, but he forgot that the law applies to everyone, especially when the judge is the grandfather of the baby you abandoned. Isabella didn't just survive. She rebuilt her life from the ashes, proving that true power comes from integrity, not intimidation. What did you think of the ending? Did Liam deserve 25 years, or should it have been life? And what about Tiffany getting immunity? Was that fair? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story. We post new twists every week. Thanks for watching.